Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. If you haven't yet, make sure you go ahead and subscribe and become a part of the Big LEZ'S League community, not just on YouTube, but also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're all on there. There's more exclusive content on the audio podcast, so make sure you go ahead and subscribe to that as well. But today, look, we looked at obviously the episode schedule and looked at obviously how many episodes we had to go of this ranking series. I've made the decision to combine the last 4 episodes into 2 episodes. So in this one, we're going to be doing second rowers, and front rowers. And then in the last episode, which will come out tomorrow, that will be the locks and the hookers. There may be an episode as well ranking the overall top 5 players by the end of next season, but I'll sort of consider that. I know that one's going to get a lot of hate. I know, with whatever decision I make, so we'll have to wait and see with that one. And just time-wise as well, I think I'm going to record a podcast with Tom Yeager on that day. A bit of a spoiler there for you just quietly, but yeah, look, we'll get stuck into this one. Second row forwards, front row forwards. I am really excited to see how a lot of these guys go, and there's a few big calls in there as well as to some guys that I think could really pop out and have a big year. But let's go through the top 5 second rowers by the end of 2025. We'll start off with number 5. For me, Cronulla Sharks, Britton Nicola is the guy to watch. Huge season last year, really impressive footy, was obviously carving up for the Cronulla Sharks and playing some real good footy on those right side raids. Plays like he's another half in that side as well with his ball playing, but absolutely tough as nails and probably one of the, look, I've got him here in the top 5 for next year. I think that he is one of the better back rowers in the competition. And you know what? To be honest, I've got a few other guys in front of him, but I think that he could be number 3 on that list easy, depending on the year that he has for the Cronulla Sharks. But he's sitting at number 5 at the moment. I just think these other 2 guys, one of them more specifically because he is who he is, but the other one that is in number 3 is a pretty big call, and it really depends on how his team goes next year. But Britton Nicola, really excited to see how he goes. I think that he will definitely be one of the top back rowers in the competition. Number 4. Now, this guy is in here because just at his best, he's an absolute weapon, and I think if the Titans play well enough, that burp was not planned. If he plays as best as he can in that Titans side, and if that Titans side is rolling, he will definitely have a big year. Dave Fafita, even when the Titans aren't going well, his stat sheet is always just insane, and we come to expect it from Dave Fafita now as well. Just these massive stat lines, 100 metres, a gazillion tackle busts. You know, we just sort of expect that from Dave Fafita now. So I think that he will have another big year. I think that he will be one of the better back rowers in the competition, and I think that it's a pretty obvious take. I don't think anyone's got him outside of their top 4, and if you do, I realistically don't think you know what you're talking about. I think that Dave Fafita, at his best, he's an absolute wrecking ball. He will always be one of the better back rowers in the competition on his day, unless he has an absolute Barry Crocker for full year. He's one of the best back rowers in the competition. Number 3, Viliami Kikau. Big call here for myself, but I think that he just glimpses from what we saw from him at his best last year for the Doggies. I think that Burton really going to be starting to unlock his game as a 5'8" rather than that third running centre. His running game's been great, Matt Burton, and it's been a big focus of his 2024 season, but I think that we're really going to start to see him break down the nuances of his role as a 5'8" and really start to work on his combinations on that left side, albeit Kikau, albeit Bronson Sherry, and whoever parks up on that left wing, it sounds like Marcelo Montoya. But just really starting to build those combinations, and I think that Viliami Kikau, that's the first combo that he's really going to lock down himself with one of the more damaging back rowers in the competition. On his day, Viliami Kikau is the best back rower in the comp as well. So looking for him to have a huge season. I think that at number 3, it is a big call, but I think that he's definitely up to it if the Dogs have a similar season to last year. But more importantly, if Burton can start to break down those nuances of what his role is as a 5'8", and start to build those combinations on that left side. Number 2, I've got Liam Martin. I love Liam Martin. I think that his game, he's always going to be one of the more damaging back rowers in the competition. Even if, we see years like 2024 and the form slump, it's up and down throughout the year. And it's sort of what we saw from Liam Martin last year. What we saw from him in the grand final, what we saw from him in Origin, that's the best of Liam Martin. If we can get that for the Panthers throughout the full year, he is going to be an absolute nightmare to deal with. And he already is on the footy field as well, just with his aggression and, being one of the smaller guys on the field, but certainly not up here. Up here, he's one of the bigger guys on the field. So I love Liam Martin. I think that he is one of the better back rowers in the competition, and I'm tipping him to have a big year. I'm tipping him to sort of keep that and find that level of consistency in his game and playing some good football throughout the entire year, rather than obviously just peaking at those right moments. I think that he is going to have a really successful season throughout the year, Liam Martin. And then number one, I've got Angus Crichton. I think that he's going to replicate last year. The Roosters obviously going to have a tough start without their two halves, or without one of their halves, in Sam Walker, and obviously without Brandon Smith. But I think that Angus Crichton, I don't think it's really going to stop him much from having a real blinder there on that left edge. Him and Sandon Smith will build a little combo. Chad will try and unlock his game as well on that left side, knowing that he is such a threat. Him and Nat Butcher, I think, are in for big years. And you probably, to be honest, I'm not going to throw him in an honourable mention, but Nat Butcher will certainly be one to watch. Angus Crichton, though, in my opinion, I think that he is in for another big year, another Origin year, another Kangaroos year for Angus Crichton. Let's see it. Moving into the front row forwards. Honourable mentions for second rowers. Honourable mentions for second rowers. I've got 3 for each of these positions. Second rowers, I've got Hudson Young for the Canberra Raiders. Obviously, depending on how Canberra go, if they go how I'm thinking they're going to go, that he probably won't get to these heights. Maybe he will on an individual effort throughout the season, but Hudson Young, I do really like him. I think that he is unlucky to have all of these star back rowers in the competition, and to be honest, he is quite low on a list like this. Obviously, with guys like Crichton, Kickout, Martin, Feeder, Britton Nicola, all playing to their best footy. Hudson Young's probably a little bit lower on that tier list, but certainly think that he has the potential to have a big year. Obviously, an Origin and Australian player. Hudson Young always considered for these type of roles, and you know why. His individual efforts, week in, week out, he is such a talented back rower. Isaiah Papali'i for the Penrith Panthers. I think if they do unlock him on that left side, if Blaze Talongi starts building combinations on that left side, Cleary roaming both sides of the ruck really starts to unlock Isaiah Papali'i's game again, like we saw at Parramatta Eels. I do love Isaiah Papali'i as a smoky to have a big season there at Penrith. And then Eli Katoa. I know that you're probably screaming at your YouTube screens going, where the fuck is Eli Katoa? He is definitely, for me, in consideration. I just think that these guys are going to have better years. I think that Katoa is going to sort of settle out a little bit, and I could be totally wrong about that, and even saying it sounds wrong. But I think that he will sort of settle out a little bit. I think that the more standoutish guys in that Melbourne team will be guys like Pappy, Hughes, Munster, Harry Grant. I think all of those guys are in for a massive season after last year and what they were able to accomplish. But Eli Katoa, certainly a guy that you'd consider for this list, and wouldn't shock me if he's sitting at number 2 yet again in 2025. Now let's move into the front rowers. For me, number 5 might be a big call, Payne Haas. I don't have him in the top part of this list. I think that he will have a big season, though. I think that he's certainly in the top 5, and I know that having a few guys over him in this regard might be a big call, considering it's Payne Haas, and at his best, he's the best front rower in the comp. But I do think that Payne Haas will still have a good year. He'll get back into the rep arena. Obviously injury hurt him a little bit throughout 2024, but keen to see how he goes next year. With under Madge Maguire, Paddy Carrigan as his front row partner as well. Kobe Hetherington, a gun defender there in the number 13. But just, Payne Haas working on his individual game, having big performances. Looking forward to that in 2025. Bit of indigestion there, just quietly. Number 4, Terrell May. Really like Terrell May for this season. I do have him above Payne Haas. I just feel like impact on club-wise. I feel like he's going to be a lot more noticeable in that Tigers outfit compared to Payne Haas in that Broncos outfit. Terrell May, I think that he's going to be a real standout at the Tigers, just go forward-wise through the middle, playing big minutes in the front row. And I think that if he works on just how he settles into contact, we talked about it on the podcast with the Cast Patrol, which is coming soon. But we were talking about Terrell May and just how he goes into contact. I won't give too much away from that chat. But just not going into contact always with an offload first mentality, trying to break the line. I think that that's a big thing for Terrell May in his game, where if he improves that, he's probably one of the better front rowers in the competition. So Terrell May in for a big year for me, and if he corrects that, he's playing Origin. There's just no question about it, in my opinion. Mitch Barnett's in number 3. I think that the Warriors are going to fall victim to having the best front row pairing in the competition again in 2025. Yes, I think that they are going to struggle without SJ, but I think that having a Harris and Barnett combo again in having a Fisher and Barnett combo, a high level combo again, I should say. I think that is going to do them a few favours there, even if they are struggling a little bit in the halves department, and if they do chop and change in that regard. The front rowers will definitely be the standout there, Barnett and James Fisher-Harris. And speaking of Fish, he's at number 2. I feel like impact-wise at that club too, leadership-wise, he's definitely going to be a standout there. Exeter Tohu, he comes in as an experienced front rower, a guy that's won 4 premierships. He's definitely going to be a key voice in that building for the New Zealand Warriors, and he'll probably be the captain too, to be honest, or at least he'll be a vice-captain for sure. But Barnett and Fish, I think that they will be the best front row combo in the comp. I think that they're the 2 better front rowers in the competition as well. You then go to number 1. I feel like his impact at this Cronulla side, him just walking into the building screams Cronulla could win a comp, and that's Addin Fonua-Blake. I feel like these the piece of the puzzle that they've needed, especially when you're comparing to last year's run there for the Cronulla Sharks. They probably missed that gun front rower and just a little bit of extra go forward through the middle. Obviously, a few other dramas as well, which they're sort of starting to correct. Hines going to 6, Trindle going to 7. Real questions around this fullback jersey, Will Kennedy, things like that. But they're starting to correct a few little tweaks from last year's, I guess, failure. Even though it's not a failure for them last year. They were very close to getting into a grand final. I feel like Addin Fonua-Blake's just going to be that piece of the puzzle that's going to take them to that next step. And I'd probably have Cronulla sitting around 3rd or 4th on the ladder too, to be honest, even though we haven't done the preview yet, and that's giving a little bit away of my ladder. Addin Fonua-Blake, I just feel like his impact at Cronulla is going to be massive, and I feel like he is probably going to take them, as I said, to that next level, whereby Cronulla's probably a favourite for me to be in the grand final, along with a few other teams as well. Honourable mentions for front rowers, I've got Moses Leota at the Panthers. I feel like he needs to stand up a little bit. You know, obviously Fish being the alpha, the big minute alpha, leaving that side. He's really going to have to stand up and start to play a few more minutes and really solidify himself as that senior alpha there in that team. So Moses Leota is definitely one. Spencer Leniu from the Roosters. I feel like it's a big year for him too. I think that he's going to be coming off the bench just because it suits their footy better. I don't see Spencer Leniu as a starter. But I feel like Spencer Leniu, I feel like people demote the bench role as not being as good as the guys who are starting. Sometimes the bench guys are better than the guys who are starting. And it's actually a majority of the time these days that the bench guys have a lot more mobility, X factor, and are quite much skill-wise better than the guys who start, who are just there to, get through the first 20 minutes. And, are those sort of operators, those old school forwards is what we're usually used to seeing in those starting front rower molds, whereas the bench guys are a little bit more mobile, a little bit more X factor, and sometimes in most cases as well, or we're seeing it become more and more often in the competition, they're better. And Spencer Leniu is a key example of that. I feel like he's going to have a huge impact for the Roosters, albeit from the bench. I feel like he's still going to have a big impact on that side. And then Josh King is a little bit of a watch for me. I know that Stefano Utuikamanu is also on this honourable mentions list as well. Big Stefano. I feel like he's going to have a massive year for the Melbourne Storm, and I know that you guys are probably, again, screaming at that screen there for Stefano. I just don't. I don't see it yet. I don't think he's going to be as good as Haas, May, Barnett, Harris, and Adam Fanor-Blake. I feel like he's going to be good. I feel like he's going to have an impact on that Melbourne side. I don't think he's going to be as good as these other guys, and happy to be proven wrong. But I just don't see it yet from the footy that I've seen from him so far. Maybe I'm missing something, but I feel like he's still going to be good. I feel like he's still going to be one of the better front rowers in the comp. I just don't think he's in my top 5 by the end of the year. And then, Josh King, as we said, I think that he will definitely be a watch too. Obviously, you see Stefano and the impact that he's going to have, but Josh King was outstanding last year. Absolutely outstanding. Played some really, really solid football for Melbourne, and obviously a guy that was in that lock forward role, more of a front row. We always saw it. They put Trent Liero there. He comes into that front row role and owns it, and had some huge performances in finals as well. Defensively, he was just an absolute warhorse. So Josh King, I think, is going to be a watch for me as well. Not only Stefano, but Josh King as well. It's a bit of a smoky, in my opinion, to make the Origin squad for New South Wales. But I think as well, just to really solidify himself as one of the alphas in the competition as well, Josh King. So there you go, guys. That's front row and second row. The next episode will be lock and hooker, and then we'll sort of determine if we are going to be doing the overall top 5, just based off time constraints and things like that. We will let you know. Otherwise, we might do it a little bit later, just before the season starts. But let me know what you think about this sort of content, guys. Do you enjoy it? Do you enjoy the rankings? Am I absolutely talking out of my ass here and don't know what I'm talking about? Let me know about it in the comments section below. We'll see you guys in the next one.